94Rocks, Jay-Z here, and I've got Danny from the band Wicked right there. And yeah, Danny, hey, first of all,
What's
it's how you doing?
good, man? It's good to be here. Super excited.
Yeah, I'm excited about this too. We are spinning your latest song, Go Rebel. Actually, we started out spinning Obsession when that came out last year, but we'll chat about that coming up a little bit. But for our listeners, we'd like to know a little bit more about the band and how it all came about. So if you give us, I guess, the short version of that, that'd be great.
Absolutely, man. I mean, the band Wicked really started with my brother, our lead singer, Chad Michael, and I. We just always wanted to, fill that void as we were growing up in like the 2000s of like what we were super influenced by. And that's like that charismatic, entertaining, shock rock, high energy, the look, the sound, and like bands like AC/DC, Thin Lizzy, David Bowie, right? And so we set out to do that. We were lucky enough to find some killer guys to join the group who have really become family with us more than anything. And the whole Wicked journey is this story of, us four guys as kids growing up. And before we even released a single record, we just played for years, got our legs, paid our dues, and learned what rock and roll was all about, right? And we moved in together. We still live together. It's like an old school band, so it's got this
Wow.
retro vibe with a modern twist, and we're just doing it. We're living, breathing, and every day is rock and roll for us.
That's awesome. Obviously, today's world, everything, I mean, back in the day, you found your friends in school or you met somewhere and you jammed in a garage. Nowadays, you're finding guys and gals on the internet and all that kind of stuff. You don't even see each other, but you guys actually living together. That's very unusual, isn't it?
It is unusual. It's a sight to see for sure. But I'll tell you, there's just beyond the obvious, so many benefits to it. Yeah, it makes it convenient and it creates this bond. We're not sending emails of here's my guitar track and this and that to each other. We're actually becoming influenced together, and that could be from even just going on a trip together or going to see other musicians, as well as listening to music and stuff like that. But like it really feeds off of this energy of this four pack, wolf pack that is Wicked.
Not to throw your roomies under the bus, but who's the messiest? Who's the cleanest? Who does the
Messiest.
cooking? Who does the
Oh,
laundry?
Or I'm gonna give you the hit list. All right, Messiest definitely Gunner on drums. He usually has at least one sock with a huge hole in it, right? Even though we buy him socks all the time. Scotty is the snobbiest. We call him Snobby Scotty, and I think it's fitting for a lead guitar player. Really, you got to have that, a little bit of that ego in the band somewhere. Chad Michael, 110% LSD, lead singer disorder, right? If you're wondering who's going to be the last one out and in the van, it's going to be Chad, at least by 15, 20 minutes, because he's blow drying his hair. And look at not to be biased and to tote, I'm just a bass player, right? So I don't have much to hang my hat on, but I will say this: I am the band dad, and I do keep it all together.
Awesome. So when everybody needs some extra money, they just go to the band dad. That's you,
That's
right?
right.
They say, "Hey, can
Just
I
call
get
me.
20? Can I get 20?"
Yeah.
You're in this band with your brother. What's that been like, and how do you guys get along, I guess?
It really is a famous relationship. Kind of grew up in a close-knit family, so it makes sense. But, you know, when there's those, disagreements, they're explosive, right? But 90% of the time, like we just finish each other's sentences. People think we're twins, even though we're not. And we have this keen connection on stage, even more than, us with the other guys. It's eerie. Like, we don't even have to look at each other. We're just immediately on the same page. It's pretty eerie in some situations. So
So you say you're like twins, or they say you're like twins. Who's older then?
I'm the oldest.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's why you're the dad, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, okay. And how does it work on the relationship side for the guys? Obviously, you got four guys rooming together. Do you have significant others?
Actually we do, over the years, we played the game and, we were, just true blue rock and rollers, we're going to stay single. And I'll say, a little bit of a long story short is, you want to evolve and grow as a human being in anything you do, and I'm proud to say that we too in this rock and roll band have done that, and we've found it actually really beneficial to include some of these amazing women in our lives in the whole business and band process, and they'll come out on the road and help us out, and take care of media and video and stuff like that. So it becomes more fun when you involve everybody. It's like a big circus. So
That sounds great. That's amazing. We're talking with Danny. He's with the band Wicked, and we're spinning the new song "Go Rebel." Before we get to that, let's talk about the appearance, the look. Obviously, you've got definitely a late '70s, '80s vibe with this band. Was that from the get-go what you wanted to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the 70s hard rock has always been our favorite, even though, we were exposed to a lot of 90s and 2000s music. But, 80s, that flair, you can't beat it. But it gets very, it's a very popular part of the niches of rock and roll genres, right? So we tend to kind of really dig into the 70s stuff. The weird thing is Jay-Z, we started off with like this crazy over the top look, something between Motley Crue and Kiss, right? Platform boots, 7 inches tall, leather that we would make out of cowhide ourselves, and my brother would sew it, stud it up. Yeah, I mean, like it was absolutely insane, and it was definitely shocking. So right off the bat, we went like 110%. And over the years, we've played with our look and evolved into maybe the album cycle or maybe just who we are as people. And I like to say we always kind of sit somewhere between maybe what you would have saw like Alice Cooper or Thin Lizzy or something would have been wearing back in the late '70s. So it's fun, man. Like there's nothing like rock and roll flair, studs, leather, denim, cheap pair of sunglasses, right?
Absolutely. Well, maybe it's because you guys have gotten older and go, boy, that's a lot of work to do all that other stuff now,
Yeah,
right?
no,
And that was my
or
next. Go ahead.
or think about playing on a Rocklahoma stage with like 110-degree weather and you're in cowhide, 1 inch thick cowhide leather, man. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
that's a little rough. Who takes the longest to get ready for the hair? That's what I'm curious because I'm sure our listeners want to know who's the diva of the group.
Well, it used to be me because I would spike my hair up. There were a lot of these cool bands when we were first starting in Sweden, actually, that were kind of bringing back a little bit of that 80s flair and like some of that punk rock look with the teased up hair and stuff like that. But I'll tell you what, I just couldn't do it anymore, man. It was just too much to get that rat's nest out. So I got to give the award to, again, my brother Chad Michael. He's always got to be looking perfect. Doesn't matter what he just worked out. Boom, there he goes. He appears with perfect hair. So it's
So the biggest question I have is who spends more time in the bathroom, you guys or your ladies?
definitely us.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. All right, let's get to the music side of things. And first song we spun here on 94 Rocks was Obsession, and now it's moved over, obviously, to your current song, Go Rebel, which is off your sophomore album. Give us a little background on Obsession, and then also now the new song in Go Rebel.
I mean, we talked a little bit about evolution so far, and the same goes for music. And a part of that is really influence that we let come into our writing process, and you know, obsession is a great example of us just kind of letting loose and saying, we're not afraid to kind of get out of our lane or maybe what people would expect. And so we went all in on a pretty kind of like hard hitting melodic rock song, and we had some fun too. Like we even threw a metal breakdown into that and everything, and it was quite the experience, and probably the fire starter for this upcoming album that's going to drop this summer, and all the different songs that are on it, right? And that kind of leads us into Go Rebel, which is basically, self-titled to the album, and kind of the flagship of Wicked Rock and Roll's core. And it's this, just good old, you know, having fun rock and roll music. Think somewhere between like Jet or, like Slade and stuff like that. And it's, we want your fists in the air, smiles on your face, and everybody just like, getting an escape for a while from their day-to-day life and having a great time.
You know, I've talked to Josh Todd from Buck Cherry, and he
Oh
said,
yeah,
rock and roll is supposed to be fun.
that's it, man.
And I mean, that's all he basically said. It's just supposed to be a good time. And that, when I've heard your music and seen a little bit of you guys, you're just that. You're just fun.
And that's great to hear because, it's like I said, man, we take this stuff super seriously, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. Life's too short, and we love to look out into the crowd and see this eclectic group of people from, folks in suits to punk rockers and, goth girls, and they're just all coming together, creating this scene of people who, like you said, are just looking to get away for a little while and have a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you mentioned album this summer. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely, yeah. So these two songs we just mentioned are, the first couple singles off of it. We're probably going to drop maybe one or two more before, we get into the summer and the album comes out late summer. But it's an awesome 13 song album. You've got like this Thin Lizzy-ish power ballad in there. There's songs that are a little bit moodier with like a bit of like Cars vibe to it. Um, you know, bunch of Cheap Trick influence in there, and it really kind of represents us and where we're at with our musical, creating trajectory. But I'll say this, from a framework of what we wanted to do with this album was, album to album have kind of represented different things, different parts of our life. And this one is less about us and more about our community or our scene, right? So we kind of took that lens and wanted to represent or create a soundtrack for just those people I was talking about, the people who come out, go to shows, create this network of folks who are interested in this rock and roll lifestyle.
What have you changed from maybe the first album to now this album that you've done on the creativity side, or maybe what you've learned a little bit over the years?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think a lot of the things that we've changed and learned, yeah, simple things like in the studio, we're trying out new gear, new tones, different spaces, right? Always trying to evolve our recording process, but at the root of it, keeping it something that represents what we do live, because we pride ourselves in being a high energy rock and roll live band, and when you come to see us, it's going to sound like the record. But we've changed kind of, our perspective of what we're talking about and what we're writing about, and it is pretty cool because it's always a journey, right? Like there's always some kind of new story that's coming up, and you're going out and you're representing to people, and we've got something to say, so we get excited about that.
You're an East Coast band. I know you do a lot of gigs up and down the coast. How about in the Midwest? Have you been here before? Is that something that you're shooting for? Or what's the story on the touring?
Absolutely. I mean, we've been on a couple of tours throughout the years. Midwest is always great. I say that, there's something about the heart of America that really lends to, good rock and roll connection, and it's always true. We're looking forward to come back more often. I think the last time we were in the area was when we were out on tour with Raven and Vicious Rumors.
Yeah.
And although we're going out next week for a short stint with Vicious Rumors on the East Coast, you could be sure that we're going to be back in the Midwest, back on the West Coast later this summer.
If you had to have a wish list, I guess, of a tour you'd love to go on, Who would that be with?
Oof.
I
I
know
mean,
it's always that
if
simple
if
question,
I could
right?
go back in time, it would definitely be Thin Lizzy.
Yeah.
Not only are they one of my favorite bands, but like just this idea of this band coming over into America and having to fight kind of like all the things that, we know to be true here in the States, and being alongside those guys, plus their musicianship, is just insane. But I gotta say, there's a lot of amazing new music coming out, and I don't want that to fall by the wayside because, like I said, we're big supporters of the scene, and there's some amazing bands like Tuck Smith and the Restless Hearts,
Yep.
Rebels Opera. These bands, whether they're from Atlanta, Nashville, all around the country, we're really seeing a revival of people picking up that good old rock and roll vibe and making their own new twist of it. And I'm proud to be, in the midst and the pack of these bands, and we're excited to play with more of these guys and really build that scene.
Well, it's older guys, in our 50s and the guys in the 60s and the 70s, they remember those 70s. And now when they see bands like you, they're like, hey, it's just like old times
That's
again,
right, man.
which is awesome. One question I got to ask, it's been asked a lot. I started asking about a year ago, was AI and what your thoughts are with AI and how you believe it should be used in the music industry and what your thoughts are on it.
Well, I'll tell you what. Um, I am very resistant to the idea of AI, and not in all cases, but I'll explain it. So, for me, like when it comes to creating, whether it be the music or even like artwork, I have a really tough time getting sold on using this tool, right? And the reason is I see all the hard work that goes into it and the blood, sweat, and tears, the passion, because like I said, we live together, so everybody's got a job. Scotty's over here doing the artwork, Chad's doing the video, Gunner's, booking shows, and when you're doing that and you're putting your own flair into it, there's something magical that happens there. Now AI makes it way more efficient and faster and everything, and that's awesome. Maybe we'll use it for our bookkeeping.
Well, then what are the girls going to do?
You know, that's a good question. We're gonna have to get them a job, that's for sure.
Okay, okay. I didn't mean to start something now anyway. So, a couple other quick things, Danny, before we get going here is how about some memorable moments for you where you finally realized, hey, we are where we're at? Is there something that kind of sticks out?
Yeah, there is. I want to say there's been so many cool moments over the years, these kind of like epiphany moments, whether it be at big festivals or, shows with bands that you've idolized over the years. But when we went to Mexico City about a year and a half ago, here we are, new place for us, not really sure what to expect. And we know we have fans overseas and stuff like that in pockets, and we're growing those fan bases. But it was when we walked out of that hotel in the morning to get into the van and go to the gig, there were all these people that were just waiting outside, and we're like, oh, I wonder if they're waiting for the headliner. And they just swarmed around us, and they had bootleg posters and CDs and all this stuff, and some of it was better than the stuff that we have, right? And they wanted pictures and autographs, and I was like, wow, this is like a small version of like what Beatlemania must have felt like. How
Right.
cool is this, right? And so I think that's really, really intrigued us and sparked our energy, and it was a special moment for sure.
That's awesome. I guess, what is kind of your ultimate goal with this band? Where do you see this band down the road and where do you want to be?
Listen, we're here to, at the end of the day, leave a legacy. I've always, since the reason we started this band, I've always wanted to kind of leave our stamp on rock and roll history, big, small, or somewhere in the middle. But we're hard workers, and we're passionate as ever about what we do. And the cool thing is like I said, we've got the right group. It's like lightning in a bottle. I don't know if you could replace one member and ever have that, chemistry be the same. So we're looking forward to growing the scene, growing our brand, and in the short future, we're really looking forward to getting to Japan, Europe, getting around the country, and spreading some good old American rock and roll.
All right, last thing I got to ask, and I normally try to ask this to all the bands now, is I'm sure people know, a lot of people know about Wicked, and maybe a lot of your fans do know lots of things about Wicked. But what's one thing that everybody thinks they know about Wicked, but they really don't? What's something that's like, yeah, it's no, there's something different there.
I think a lot of people think that, we're these, rough and tough and, all the time, like pumped up, like, macho guys. You'll see us on the stage in vests with no shirts or this or that. But we're really big softies at heart. And I think one cool example is on our previous album, Sunburn. We took the time and we really made this special song called Summer and Sun, dedicated to Chad and my grandmother that passed away. And before her passing, I'm telling you, we could be anywhere traveling on the road doing gigs, and we would always find time to stop back to see her at her house, hang out, watch some Lawrence Welk, and sing songs with her. So you know that's the real us, and we put on this rock and roll persona, and look like we're badasses, but at the end of the day we're softies. So
So note to self, all of the fans, they're softies, and if you bring teddy bears for them, they'd love them, right? You wouldn't
yeah,
rip the heads
exactly.
off. Throw up teddy bears on the stage, and they'll be like, "Oh, look at the teddy bears!" Danny, it's been a lot of fun getting to know more about you and the
Been a
band.
blast,
And if
man.
more, absolutely, if more people want information about Wicked, how can they get that information?
Listen, you could go to wickedrockandrollofficial.com or any of our socials at Wicked Rock and Roll.
Awesome, Danny. Good luck this year, and good luck with the album this summer.
Thanks, man. We'll talk soon.
Once again, that is Danny. That is the band Wicked. This is 94 Rocks.